Here's a detailed examination of the forgotten black empires that once controlled vast networks of global trade, according to historians, archaeologists, and early travel records long before European dominance. The movement of gold, salt knowledge, and culture across continents was largely shaped by powerful African states whose influence reached far beyond their borders. Yet over time, their role in global commerce was minimized, simplified, or removed from mainstream historical narratives. For centuries, global trade has been presented as something that emerged primarily from Europe and later spread outward. However, this version of history overlooks the reality that long before European ships dominated the seas, African empires were already operating complex trade systems connecting West Africa, North Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. These networks were not informal exchanges, but structured systems governed by laws, taxation, and diplomacy. One of the most important commodities in the ancient world was gold, and much of the gold that fueled Mediterranean and Middle Eastern economies originated in West Africa. African empires controlled not only the supply of this gold, but also its movement, determining who had access to wealth and who did not. This level of control gave African rulers immense economic and political power on the global stage. Contrary to the stereotype of isolated or primitive societies, these empires maintained organized cities, trade hubs, and administrative centers. Merchants traveled thousands of miles across deserts and seas, carrying goods such as salt, textiles, spices, metals, and manuscripts. These trade routes required security, infrastructure, and cooperation between regions, demonstrating a high level of political organization. You are welcome to this video. Don't forget to hit the like button right in front of you. Share with friends to help spread this narrative, and subscribe to stay with the family. Historical records from Arab and European travelers consistently described African trade cities as wealthy, orderly, and influential. Some accounts spoke of bustling markets where goods from multiple continents were exchanged, while others noted that African rulers regulated trade through taxation systems that rivaled those found anywhere else in the world. At the time, these were not marginal economies. They were central to global commerce. Control of trade also meant control of knowledge along these routes. Ideas, scientific understanding, and religious thought moved alongside goods. African centers of learning became places where scholars gathered copied manuscripts and debated philosophy, law, and mathematics. The flow of information was inseparable from the flow of commerce. Yet as European powers began expanding their influence, the narrative surrounding global trade began to shift. Africa's role was gradually reframed, not as a driver of commerce, but as a resource to be exploited. This reframing served a political purpose, because acknowledging that African empires once controlled global trade would undermine the justification for colonization and economic domination. Over time, maps were redrawn, timelines were compressed, and the complexity of African trade systems was reduced to brief mentions or ignored entirely. Generations were taught a version of history that treated Africa as peripheral rather than central to the global economy. The absence of these empires from popular education was not due to a lack of evidence, but to selective storytelling. Modern research has begun revisiting primary sources, archaeological findings, and oral histories that confirm the scale and sophistication of African trade networks. These findings reveal economies that were interconnected, resilient, and deeply influential, shaping regions far beyond the African continent. What is becoming clear is that global trade as we understand it today did not emerge in isolation, nor did it begin with European expansion. It was built upon foundations laid by earlier civilizations, including powerful black empires whose economic systems connected the ancient world. Remembering these empires is not about rewriting history, but restoring balance to it. Acknowledging that global trade was a shared human achievement, shaped by many centers of power, not a single narrative of progress. The forgotten black empires that once controlled global trade were not anomalies of the past. They were architects of the interconnected world, and understanding their role forces us to rethink who truly shaped global history.